Welcome back to the White Buffalo Hour. This is your host, John Phillips, and we are broadcasting from the great state of Massachusetts. Today we are going to talk about one of my favorite subjects. The title of this broadcast is Christians Dance with the Devil. A couple weeks back, we were talking about the Old Testament chapter of Daniel and his experiences in the Babylonian society. The take-home message from that broadcast was that polytheism and classical conditioning of the public were the key ingredients in a Babylonian society that had gone mad on war. The story ends, of course, with three nonviolent protesters challenging Nebuchadnezzar the king and his polytheism, and Nebuchadnezzar goes into a personal crisis for 7 years, and it is monotheism that eventually heals the Babylonian kingdom. Now, Daniel spent the rest of his scholarly life prophesizing about the history of humanity and the destruction that will be brought upon all of mankind for their failure to follow God's law. In the final chapter of the Bible, John evokes many of the same spiritual themes of Daniel and the eventual downfall of the Babylonian system. The reason we turned our attention to the story of Daniel is because many of the symptoms of the disease that affected the Babylonian society are present in modern-day society. We've demonstrated on the White Buffalo Hour by historical examples that both fear and religious mysticism have been a part of the psychological drama and trauma that have had a major impact on our cultural construction of reality. Our paradigm of reality, the glasses through which we interpret the world around us, has been carefully crafted for many generations. It is impossible to understand Babylon in the last chapter of the Holy Bible, Revelations, without first examining the nature of the Babylonian kingdom in the Old Testament book of Daniel. The Babylonian system of control depended on classical conditioning and polytheism based on idols of gold, silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone. The idols of Babylonian society are ever present in modern-day society, as demonstrated so clearly in events like Black Friday and the corporate mania we are all witness to as people crowd the new temples in worship of material gods. With the signs all around us that we are in end times, Christian commentators, both red and blue, speculate about who Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes and of the abominations of the earth, is from the 17th chapter of Revelations, while forgetting the importance of Daniel in his descriptions of the Babylonian system. The Babylonian system was a system of military conquest, led by a ruler that thought he himself was God, that controlled society by a system of classical conditioning and idol worship. When we shine the light of Daniel on the 17th chapter of Revelations, it is astonishing how it so accurately describes the current events and the current crisis we now face in modern day society. Reading from Revelations chapter 17, verses 1 through 5, it states, "One of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and said to me, 'Come, I will show you the punishment of the great prostitute who sits by many waters. With her kings of the earth committed adultery, and the inhabitants of the earth were intoxicated with the wine of her adulteries.' Then the angel carried me away in the spirit into a wilderness. There I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was covered with blasphemous names and had 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was dressed in purple and scarlet, and was glittering with gold, precious stones, and pearls. She had a golden cup in her hand, filled with abominable things and the filth of her adulteries. The name written on her forehead was a mystery: Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes and the abominations of the earth." The cult of the goddess, a great prostitute, is a very prominent image in modern-day media. From the Ann Coulter and Sarah Palins of the world to Madonna, Lady Gaga, Hannah Montana, and many of the other idols of the lost city of angels. The image of the goddess in modern pop culture is a way to initiate our children into idol worship that often includes many of the Babylonian traditions of polytheism. It is a system of classical conditioning. Deep inside this corporate paradigm of the goddess hides this constant hidden message that enlightenment, happiness, and joy come from sexual conquests in the Babylonian kingdom. This is the same philosophy that Aleister Crowley, Anton LaVey, and Michael Aquino have promoted among our young people for more than 100 years. The goth movement and gangster rap are 2 of the City of Lost Angels' most recent cultural manifestations that have had a tragic consequence for children and young adults. Many of the music videos from today's pop icons like Madonna and Lady Gaga recreate the images of the Babylonian myth of the divine goddess. With Molly as the new sacrament encouraged by the goddess, our children are led down the primrose path by a lost city of angels that plays a key role in conditioning our children. While we worry about the elimination of prayer from schools, our children are immersed in a culture of moral relativism and idol worship that have left an entire generation scarred with the wounds of a polytheistic paradigm of reality and searching for deeper meaning to life. As Revelations 17 continues, John tells the angel that when he saw Babylon, the mother of all prostitutes, when he recognized what the myth of the garden meant to polytheism in modern society, this sudden revelation left him astonished, but bewildered in a state of wonder. Reading from chapter 17, verses 6 through 13, it says, "When I saw her, I was greatly astonished. Then the angel said to me, 'Why are you astonished? I will explain to you the mystery of the woman and of the beast she rides, which has the 7 heads and 10 horns.'" The angel tells John, "Why are you astonished? I will explain the woman and the beast she rides." This calls for a mind with wisdom. The 7 heads are the 7 hills on which the woman sits. They are also 7 kings. 5 have fallen. 1 is, the other has not yet come. But when he does come, he must remain for only a little while. The beast who once was and now is not is the 8th king. He belongs to the 7th and is going to his destruction. The 10 horns you saw are 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom, but who for 1 hour will receive authority as kings along with the beast. They have one purpose and will give their power and authority to the beast. Now the 7 heads represent 7 rulers of the earth and the 7 hills upon which the woman sits. The 10 horns represent 10 royal rulers. Now a horn can also be thought of course, as a means of communications, a means of broadcasting a message or music. So there is a connection between ruling and blowing the horn to communicate, much like the idolatry of Nebuchadnezzar in Daniel. The distinguishing characteristics of these rulers is that they ride with the beast. The fact that the woman sits on a hill in 7 different places suggests it is a metaphor for a woman, a cult of the goddess, perhaps a metaphor of how motherhood and women are portrayed in society by our modern media. The imagery of the kings of the earth committing adultery with the prostitute of Babylon has both a sexual connotation and a deeper idea of selling yourself to the beast, as in prostituting your principles. Chapter 17, verse 2 again says, "With her the kings of the earth committed adultery, and the inhabitants of the earth were intoxicated with the wine of her adulteries." The image of all of humanity intoxicated is a powerful metaphor of control through drugs or altered states of consciousness. The inhabitants of the earth were intoxicated with the wine of her adulteries. The wine of her adulteries suggests the sacramental nature of the type of intoxication she induces. The deeper meaning relating to misleading information about the nature of the new covenant between Jesus and the church, as represented by the wine as the blood of Jesus in the communion of the Last Supper. The word wine can also, of course, become a verb, and although it is spelled differently, To whine or to hear somebody whining, of course, is a popular modern cultural construction. The word whine means to utter a low, usually nasal, complaining cry or sound as a form of uneasiness, discontent, or peevishness. Many say that we live in a society of whiners, and although etymologists trace the origin of the word whine to about 1100 AD in the Middle East and Europe, wine and alcohol are known to cause a person to let down their defenses, and everyone has heard somebody whine at them after consuming alcohol. So I'm going to suggest today that whining could have become a very familiar term even before the time of Christ. The important take-home point is that a substance, a drug, is part of the ritual of control in John's end-time images of Babylon. If you listen to some of our modern-day pop icons who use Babylonian images in their productions and their videos, it is not a stretch to think of their music and their singing as a whine. A wine that is often enhanced with mind-altering substances. So the wine of her seductions in this metaphor is of a pop icon singing about adultery, of rappers degrading women, or, like the Material Girl, suggesting that you can have your virginity back every time you make love, like a virgin for the very first time. Humanity's obsession with women as prostitutes, hookers, something to be worshipped, is a distraction from the horn of the beast, the Babylonian music that causes society to be intoxicated, misled as sheep, as her stories of sexual seduction and conquest rock them to sleep. Chapter 6 says, I saw the woman was drunk with the blood of God's holy people, the blood of those who bore testimony to Jesus. In this 6th verse, we see the Babylonian goddess drunk with the blood of God's holy people. If you are willing to accept the possibility of the ethnogenic nature of the Christian sacrament and the Last Supper, then this verse suggests being drunk with the sacrament. We have discussed the issue of Molly and ecstasy on the White Buffalo Hour before, and the importance of proper supervision and setting when one is introduced and using psychedelic drugs. So this 6th verse reflects the misuse of sacraments by the goddess during ceremonies of initiation. The main characteristics of these rulers who are compromised by the mother goddess are that they wage war against the peace. Revelation 17 says, chapter 14, they will wage war against the Lamb, but the Lamb will triumph over them because he is Lord of lords, King of kings, and with him will be called chosen and faithful followers. The water where the prostitute sits are the people, the multitudes, the nations, and the languages, according to John. The water here signifies a connection and continuity between people, multitudes, and language. The word, or communication, is the spiritual essence of the community, and the living water is often associated with the monotheistic view of the world and the moral paradigm and code that accompanies it. Chapter 17, verse 15 through 18, it states, "Then the angel said to me, the waters you saw where the prostitute sits are the people, multitudes, nations, and languages. The beast and the 10 horns you saw will hate the prostitute. They will bring her to ruin and leave her naked. They will eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For God has put it into their hearts to accomplish his purpose by agreeing to hand over to the beast their royal authority until God's words are fulfilled. The woman you saw is the great city that rules over the kings of the earth." In verse 16, we have a very definite description of how kings and the beast will treat the prostitute. And as you listen to the words of this verse, think about the many sexual scandals that have become front-page news, the downfall of pop idols, and the message that modern-day society conveys to its people about women involved in sexual scandals over the years. Monica, Paula, Jennifer, Maryland, plus many others who were paraded before the public, naked sometimes, burned with fire. Modern-day communications is the fire, the electrical impulses that sets one's personal life on fire on the public stage. The metaphor starts with the idea that there is hatred between the beast and the king and the prostitute. So you have the hint here of a deception. Because at the beginning of this chapter, they are working together. But when disgrace comes, they pretend that the kings and the beast are not friends and that they are not the lovers of prostitutes.